This is Rudy Javaria for College Web Mentor, a College Web media production. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Andrew Goth, director and writer, and Joanne Ray, writer and producer for the action sci-fi thriller Mind Gamers. In theaters March 28th, 2017. Mind Gamers is from Terramata Factual Studios, a production unit of Red Bull Media House. Mind Gamers is about a group of brilliant young students who discover the greatest scientific breakthrough of all time, a wireless neutral network connected via quantum computer capable of linking minds of each and every one of us. But soon, they discover they're part of a much greater and more sinister experiment as a means of mass control. Andrew and Joanne discuss with me the task of writing, directing, producing, and offer some advice to college students on how they got to where they are today in their industry. I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did. How did the idea of taking on this project come about?
It started actually with a very broad mandate within the company that there was a desire to do a film that would explore the potential of the human mind. And so we decided to kind of walk down both of those paths, to do a film about the future evolution of the human mind, but to wrap it up in a mind-bender format so you could really engage at a kind of interactive level with the audience.
How does a director wrap their mind around directing a film like this? Like, where do you begin?
Just to rewind a bit, Joanne was working for the company and I was freelance. We've worked together many times before. So I was approached from Joanne as an independent, as a freelancer. And so I wasn't really bound as much by company remit. With my sort of independent, free-thinking way, I was able to go away, have a lot of coffees. And then we came back and we just started brainstorming. And as soon as we started going into the science and we started delving into the different things that you can be exposed to now online, it started to just become very exciting. And obviously with the Hadron Collider at the time, because this is as far back as when we started thinking about this, when the Hadron Collider was about to be turned on, and there was news reports of the world being sucked into some sort of black hole. So it was very sort of, science was front page news at the time. It does sound a really difficult task, but it actually felt quite an easy task once we started throwing ideas around. And it was very exciting, the process. And I do think that in this day and age, people are more accepting of new formats, new ways of telling stories, new narrative ideas, visualizations and things like that. Yeah, we hope we've done a good job.
What are your overall goals for the film?
I think that the goal for the film is that we create something that is engaging and entertaining and means that the audience leaves with all of the cogs in their mind turning and keen to explore this world of neurotechnology, brain-computer interface, mind-to-mind connectivity.
Let me just jump in there. And this question is asked a lot. The only concern I have is that people feel it's sort of a bit intellectually challenging and it's not going to be fun. And fun and entertainment is the first words I would describe the whole process being. It really is a fun experience. It has to be a fun experience. It has to be a piece of entertainment. Then all the cogs and other levels that you encounter in the film, in all the ancillary parts of it, should just be an add-on, really. My fundamental fear is that people are going to be warded off by the amount of science and technology that's mentioned within and around the film, but it really will be a fun popcorn eating experience. So I just want to say that before Joanne gets the Jesus out of your readers.
I love films that I find that once the film is over that I'm thinking about them more and more. So, I love the movies, obviously, of David Lynch. I'm sure you do. After you walk out of films like Memento or Mulholland Drive, you find that it just stays with you because your brain is still trying to figure out exactly what it is that you saw. And I personally find that an enjoyable process. I like that process of kind of like digesting a movie after it's over. We thought that, we definitely give the audience something to think about. There's a lot to figure out and interpret from the movie once it's finished. But as part of that, I'm sure that when people are thinking about it, they might start to look at this sort of future possibility of brain-computer interface and mind-to-mind connected technology, that it'll take them on a really interesting voyage of discovery because it's absolutely fascinating where this science could take us.
When I walked out of there, I felt like this is a bit scary, especially because, we did that experiment with the sensors on our brains.
I think I know where you're going. And again, this always comes up. Really, it's the Terminator question and where technology is going and how we're going to interact with it in the future. My personal opinion is that we should embrace it, that it's exciting, that it's going to have its ups and downs. It's going to have you use the analogy of having to break eggs to make an omelette, but it's really something that we should embrace. And if you go into this experience thinking on a more positive level, even though you do see some very violent reactions to the change, that the change is inevitable and ultimately will be for the good. So it's going to be a journey. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. It's going to be fun. It's going to be scary, but it's also going to have a positive outcome. That's the way I see it, anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we see it. Obviously, we haven't shown the film through to its entirety, but the usual paradigm of science fiction films is that you open up and the world is great, technology intervenes, and everything goes to hell. We actually invert that, and we kind of start where we are experiencing one of many possible outcomes, but it's an outcome where technology has fallen into the wrong hands. But then the technological power of Enoch kind of intervenes and actually resets, closes down one outcome to bring forth another into existence, which is this basic quantum principle, which actually puts mankind on a good path, where this technology is used to connect us with the potential of empathy and understanding. So we actually believe in this film. This is a good machine movie. This is a good technology movie. So it 180 degrees sort of inverts the usual sci-fi paradigm.
Was most of this film on location, or was it filmed with a lot of green screen?
Both. We did many locations. We shot in Bucharest and Vienna, all around both cities. And I was in the studio as well with green screen. But it was something I wanted to keep based as much as I could in reality, so that you felt like you had your feet on the ground. So it wasn't sort of floaty as CGI. It was more of a heavy base CGI, if you know what I mean. It just felt like it needed to be seamless, and so we really did work, and we had some great guys working on the film to give it that feel, because we do have a character who interacts for the first time with a quantum computer, and I was very keen to make sure that you felt there was a weight to that. Didn't feel sort of light and digital. Yeah, you felt that if one of us, as in one of our race, finally does connect with a quantum computer, which is based on chaos and things we don't understand yet, that it would be a good experience, and that's what I was trying to go for.
It came out that way, and that question was more of a compliment, because I couldn't...
Sorry, I really must listen to me. Sorry.
No. I meant it as a compliment because I was like, it's so smooth. It was hard for me to figure it out. Now I'm going to ask you some questions quickly about your education. Now, I know, Joanne, that you went to Cambridge. Andrew, based on my notes that I have here, the production notes, I don't have anything. But is there anything in your education that prepared you for what it is you're doing now as a career?
Not really. I mean, I wasn't as well educated as this lady next to me, that's for sure. My mother, however, was an electrical engineer. In the 60s, she was the first female electrical engineer to do this apprenticeship at a place called Metrovix in Manchester. She was very scientific. Strangely, she was also religious, which always was something that confused me as a child. She was so scientific, and yet she did believe. Realistically, I think, I'm not sure, but that influence at the beginning, she used to love film, she used to love taking us to the cinema, and she was very scientific based, and so I did do some science at school. Really, I don't know. I mean, I love sci-fi. I love all the Marvel movies now that are coming out. If I'd have been 15, I would have never left the cinema. It's all good stuff. With John and I, we have a really good combination because, she is very much more academic than I am, but I also really like to sort of, keep it real and enjoy listening. I enjoy the exploration of science, but I don't actually understand that much. So I feel because she's much more aware of what's happening, it's just a good way of working, good partnership.
It sounds like it's been more of tens of thousands of hours of watching. That's what's brought you to become...
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And I think that's brilliant. I think that's brilliant.
The big one experiment that we found that was a sort of eureka moment is when we found that the two rats were brain-to-brain interface on the two rats. I don't know if you come across that yet, but
yes.
This is actually in the film, and it really did happen, and I did see it on a YouTube video, and I literally ran across the room with the computer and just had Joe watch it and just say, well, look at, and it was already 4 years old when they were first doing these things. A rat could actually be taught how to go through a maze after another one had been working on it for 4 months, and the rat could actually do it straight away, and I just thought that was just unbelievable.
I was describing the film to a friend of mine who is a mathematician and an educator, and the way I described it to him was just like what you're telling me about the rats. I said, imagine you're in university and trying to figure out this problem, but you hook up your brain to the cloud, and you're now tapped into 40 different mathematicians from all around the world, and you happen to lock into their brain. So as soon as you look at this problem, you have it figured out in seconds because you're pulling from that cloud of everybody else's knowledge. And he just looked at me like, wow, that's how I described it to him.
And as you just described, if you then take that further, and you're not just hooked up to 40, you're hooked up to everybody else who's hooked up. I mean, what does that mean for us? Where do we go? I mean, and as you said before, it usually is a film or a TV show like Star Trek. When I first saw Star Trek, I saw an episode where it was just energy, and we just become energy because we didn't need our bodies anymore, and people communicated telepathically in a different way. And I was a kid, and I just thought that was just mind-blowing, literally.
And Joanne, how did Cambridge get you to where you are with your career and writing scripts and producing?
I was very surprised that I got into Cambridge because I came from comprehensive school. It was quite unusual to come from the kind of education that I came from and go to one of the sort of greatest educational establishments. And one of the things that I found is that I was just suddenly in the company of incredibly intelligent and alive and inquiring and curious young people who obviously became also my friend network. And I think that there becomes almost like this energy circle of curiosity that when you're just with your friends and the kind of people that I was socializing with who are constantly seem to be pushing and in all their different fields, it becomes contagious. So even though I was doing history, which many people can think of as a dead subject, I just did history because my favorite teacher in my comprehensive school was a historian, and he was a guy that really encouraged me to believe that it was possible for me to get to Cambridge. So I almost just did history in honor of him, not because I was even particularly passionate about it. But I think it just gives you that appetite for curiosity, and I found myself just spending 3 years in the company of people that were constantly saying, what if, what if, what if? I think that I left university just always asking that question and never fearing, because my social circle would be from physicists through to people doing geography to music. I never felt that just because I wasn't trained in a subject, I couldn't get to be interested in it. So even though I had zero scientific background, when I started to look into this whole theme of doing something based on the potential of the human mind, and the first thing that I just stumbled across was this idea, is human thought a quantum process of entanglement? I thought, I don't know what quantum means. I don't know what entanglement means. But let's find out. And so then I just sort of fell into it at that point. So I think I would say that my education at Cambridge and being surrounded by people in all different fields of study, constantly just asking what if, it's always made me feel that just because I didn't even know what the word quantum meant, but I couldn't wait to find out. And I think it just gives you that appetite of, you're absolutely fearless of just walking into a subject matter that you don't know anything about. If I'd been given responsibility for the Hadron Collider, I think I might have gone into it with a little bit more thought, but I'm saying this in the context that I'm a movie maker and I can't kill or harm anyone with what I do. And so it was just, for me, the most enjoyable thing was just walking into a subject matter that I knew nothing about and just discovering all of this fascinating content.
How long did it take to actually go from concept to first draft until you were actually ready to shoot the film?
It was a 2-year process from first starting to shooting the film. The way that Andrew and I tend to work is we usually get to a first draft very quickly, but then we do constant revisions. So we tend to be in the school of evolving script work. We don't sort of try and craft a first draft until it's absolutely perfect. We'll craft a draft, we'll kind of get the basic story beats down. But to give you an example, for the first 3 or 4 drafts, the main lead protagonist was a male character, and then Andrew just turned around a draft and I got it back, and suddenly the lead, or Enoch, the manifestation of Enoch the computer, which is they had manifested as a man in a slightly sort of quantum messiah realm, suddenly came back in Andrew's draft as female, and it gave a completely different tip to the script, a completely different energy and excitement to the script. And so then we started working really in that direction, that the quantum messiah would be female. And so it was really like 2 years of evolution, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Last question for both of you. What advice would you give to college students that would like to get in the career that you are?
I can give you one piece of advice, and I can actually hold up Andrew as an example. One thing that I always say is the illusion that there is somehow a natural God-given gift to be a writer or a God-given gift to be a director. Obviously, there is some talent requirement, but more than anything, it's just a desire to do it, and just start. Don't wait and think, oh, I should sign up and do writing classes, or I should save up and go to film school. And I'd say the example that I would give of Andrew, who was somebody that just grew up passionate about film, grew up in Manchester with no real pathway of getting from where he was into film school or anything of that sort, but just with a passion for film. And Andrew sat down one day and he wrote a screenplay. And this was, I think, back in the day when it was written on a typewriter, wasn't it? So it was written on a typewriter.
Not that old.
He didn't have a computer, let's put it that way, which meant every single scene changed, the whole page had to be rewritten. It was not professionally formatted. Nobody had taught Andrew, this is the right way that you set out a script on the page. But it got read by somebody that's in the kind of script development world, and it was submitted to the Carl Foreman program, which is run by BAFTA, to recognize screenplays that haven't been produced. And from that, screenplay started to get circulated, and it really did not matter that the screenplay wasn't properly formatted, or that it was just this raw thing. And when it came to me as a producer, I read it, and as soon as I got to the back page, I wanted to read it again, because it had an energy and a life to it that I didn't care that it wasn't written properly on the page. I knew that it had something that film eventually made. And so if Andrew had sat there and thought, oh, I have to learn how to do all of these things and read all of these books, but he put his energy into sitting down and writing it.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I don't need to say anything now, because obviously she's just told me my life story. But basically what my advice would be in this day and age is to just shoot something. Go out there, shoot it. There's so many ways to shoot it. Obviously all your computers now have got editing facilities. Learn how to edit. Editing, if you want to make films and you want to direct, you have to be able to edit. You can shoot on your iPhone, you can shoot on whatever you need. Get people excited, do something that you're interested in, and shoot it. Make films, and then people will notice, and get them out there via the internet. As soon as you start knowing what your craft is, you can walk into a room and say, I want to do this.
Don't wait to be producers. Don't wait to spend money in film school. Just
beg, borrow, or steal, but just shoot something.
Exactly.
Do you guys have mentors?
To be honest with you, I think that's a very good question, because no, I didn't. You do feel alone a lot, especially where I came from in Manchester, which was a really rough area, and film wasn't looked upon as anything special or achievable. So you do feel alone a lot, and I didn't have a mentor. I did join something called the Manchester Youth Theatre, which had an element to it, but my mother was a teacher. I didn't grow up with my father, so I didn't have a mentor. But you have to just go out there and find people that inspire you.
I would say there's one person who's just one comment and approach to life that influenced me, not directly in this, but I think in just the way that I approach life. I was very fortunate that when I was at the BBC, my head of department was a guy called Mark Thompson. He went on to become Director General, and now I think he's editor of the New York Times. And he was a real fire starter within the BBC, and the one thing that he would always say when he was embarking on something that corporations had not approved was, he said, Joanne, it is far better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. And that was how he ran his life. Better just to do it and then tell everybody sorry than hang around constantly waiting for somebody to give you the green light. And that goes back to what I was saying about just starting. Just do something.
Get all your readers down to the theatre on Tuesday.
Joanne, Andrew, this has been brilliant. Thank you for your time.
You take care, Rudy. Good to talk to you.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
This interview has been brought to you by collegewebcoupon.com.